This hour of the Costa Report is brought to you by IBM. Big data at the speed of business.
Welcome to the Costa Report. I'm Rebecca Costa, and thank you for joining me for another 2 hours of straight talk radio. I want to welcome members of our armed forces who are joining us from remote locations over the internet, as well as new listeners in Boston and Chicago. Thank you for making time to be with us again and for your many thoughtful and very well-informed emails. I really appreciate reading them. In just a moment, former Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare in the Carter administration and one of President Johnson's closest confidants, Mr. Joseph Califano, will be joining us to set the record straight on misinformation perpetuated in the Academy Award-nominated film Selma, as well as important social reforms that must be credited to President Johnson. But before Mr. Califano joins us, as is my custom each week, let me tell you a little about his background. Joseph Anthony Califano, Jr. was born in Brooklyn, New York. He earned his undergraduate degree from the College of the Holy Cross and law degree from Harvard Law School. In 1955, Califano enlisted in the Navy, where he was assigned to the office of the Judge Advocate General in Washington, D.C. After leaving the Navy, Califano joined the law firm Dewey Ballantine. And in 1961, Califano was named Special Assistant to the General Counsel of the Department of Defense. Shortly afterwards, he was appointed General Counsel of the Army, where Califano received the Distinguished Service Medal. It wasn't long before Califano's reputation for getting the job done spread throughout Washington, and in 1964 he was asked to serve as Special Assistant to the Secretary of Defense, where he acted as a liaison between the President and Defense Department. But in less than 12 months, President Lyndon B. Johnson recruited Califano as Special Assistant to the President of the United States. In 1977, Califano became the nation's 12th Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare in the Carter administration, a post he served until 79 when he re-entered private practice again. He is credited with founding the National Center on Addiction and Substance Abuse at Columbia University and the Institute for Social and Economic Policy in the Middle East at Harvard University. And he is also the author of over a dozen best-selling books. It's my pleasure to welcome to the Costa Report a dedicated public servant who is here to set the record straight, Mr. Joseph Califano. Welcome to the program, Mr. Califano.
Well, it's just great to be with you.
If it's all right with you, I'd like to open today's program by tackling a problem we seem to have with revisionist history, because lately we seem to see a lot of that, from Brian Williams' account of being shot down to President Johnson's stance on civil rights. So if it's all right with you, I'd like to start with the film Selma, which is up for a number of awards this year. You were one of President Johnson's closest confidants, so help us set the record straight on Selma today.
Well, the reality about this is, one, in December of when Lyndon Johnson arrived in Washington on the night of the assassination of John F. Kennedy, when he met with Jack Valenti and others, he said he was going to do a voting rights bill. That's how important he thought it was. He considered voting rights the most important piece of legislation of all the hundreds of laws he proposed and got passed. In the immediate part before Selma, in December '64, he and Martin Luther King met. Andrew Young was there in the White House, and they talked about the need for voting rights. And neither the president nor Martin Luther King, according to Andrew Young, knew anything about Selma. Selma, of course, was a march in '65. In January of '65, President Johnson called Martin Luther King. Anybody can listen to that conversation. It's online at the OBJ Library. You can bang it in and listen to it. It was a 16 or 17-minute conversation. They first discussed appointing Negroes, which was the term in those days, to high-level federal jobs. Then Johnson said, we're going to have billions to help your people with health and with education. But the most important thing, Doctor, which is how he always addressed King, is the vote. If we can get them to vote, that will solve 70% of their problems. King agreed. President Johnson then said, for what I'm going to go to Congress with up here, you can make a great contribution. I want you to find the worst place in Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, or South Carolina, a place where a Negro has to recite the Constitution to register to vote and a white person doesn't. And you find that place, get it in the pulpits, get it on television, get it on the radio, and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. And eventually a guy that doesn't do anything except drive a tractor will say, that's not fair. That's not fair. And that'll help me for what I'm going to shove through up here in Washington.
So, in other words, Johnson felt that this march from Selma to Montgomery would be a big help to the president to get his civil rights initiatives through Congress. Is that right?
You're absolutely right. And an important thing here is King came back, and that was January 15th. King came back on February 9th and said to the president, I found the place. It's Selma. And it was actually Julian Bond, who was working in Selma, who was putting the march together at that point. And then Johnson said, fine, he hoped there wouldn't be violence. They marched. There was an attempted march. I think it was March 5th and another on March 7th. And during those marches, John Lewis, the congressman, not then congressman, presently congressman, got his head banged up, and a white minister from Boston was killed.
Yes, that's right. At the time when Wallace came forward and said that he couldn't protect the marchers, that kind of opened the door for Johnson to be able to send in the National Guard. He needed that to occur. Is that right?
Exactly. He summoned Wallace to Washington. You're right, absolutely right. He summoned Wallace to Washington. Wallace said he couldn't protect the marches, and Johnson said, if you can't, I will. And he federalized the Alabama National Guard, which means he brought it under the control of the Army and his control. And those troops protected the marches in the historic march, which was from Selma all the way to Montgomery, Alabama. And I think it's worth noting two other things. One, at the end of that phone conversation I first mentioned to you, Martin Luther King said, God bless you, Mr. President. And in Montgomery, Alabama, at the end of the march, in King's statement to the marchers, he thanked Lyndon Johnson.
Well, it's clear that Lyndon Johnson and Martin Luther King worked together. Johnson needed King's support. He needed this march to get legislation through Congress that was important to him. I also want to point out that Johnson was responsible for appointing the first black cabinet member, Robert Weaver. Is that correct?
Yes, that's absolutely right.
And also the first black Supreme Court justice, Thurgood Marshall, was also a Johnson appointee.
You're absolutely right. Both of those.
So you must have been surprised when you saw the movie Selma.
Well, I was shocked. I mean, I saw the movie, and I'll tell you what bothered me. The movie portrayed Johnson as being reluctant, portrayed him as not wanting to do it, not wanting King to do it, and then there's a scene in which, and as being very condescending, and as the meetings between King and Johnson being contentious, which were not true, and Andrew Young makes that point. And then there's a scene in which the head of the FBI stands in front of the president's desk and says to the president, if you want me to, I can take care of this guy permanently or temporarily. I mean, permanently, meaning kill him.
Yeah.
And then there's an indication that Johnson sent a tape of King, who was sleeping with another woman, having intercourse with another woman.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have to unfortunately, we have to take our first hard break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about the misportrayal and why we are still benefiting from Johnson's great society. You're listening to the Costa Report.
Do you love creating salads as much as you enjoy eating them? Hi, I'm Amy Tobin, cookbook author and culinary expert. Dole inspires fresh and wholesome dishes for any meal with their wide selection of salad blends and all-natural salad kits. From the mild and tender texture of sweet butter lettuce to the crunch of classic romaine sprinkled with colorful shredded carrots and red cabbage, Dole has over 30 salad blends to satisfy every palate. If you're looking for the ultimate in convenience, try Dole's unique salad kit combinations that include farm-fresh lettuces and vegetables, mouth-watering all-natural toppings, and specially made dressings. It's all you need to make a distinctively delicious salad. The possibilities are endless. Visit www.dolesalads.com for recipes and other ideas to feed your culinary imagination.
Have you checked out the Costa Report blog yet? Well, what are you waiting for? There's no quicker way to find out what newsmakers are saying than the Costa Report blog at RebeccaCosta.com. It's where the former CEO of Apple and PepsiCo, John Scully, predicts where the next tech breakthroughs are going to come from. And also where Trent Lott explains why a GOP reversal of the Senate nuclear option will signal real change in our nation's capital. And the Costa Report blog is where you'll discover why Alan Dershowitz is worried that ISIS is adopting Hamas-like tactics. You'll find all this and more at the Costa Report blog. A new blog is posted every week, and they're short, pithy, and tell the unvarnished truth. Just go to RebeccaCosta.com to get the latest blog. That's RebeccaCosta.com. And while you're there, be sure to register for updates and breaking news. The Costa Report blog, bringing you the news the big networks don't and won't.
Is your internet connection slow? Etheric Networks can help you. Etheric Networks is the Bay Area's locally owned alternative to DSL satellite and cable. We do a few things to make our service better. We have a great reputation, and our staff is committed to providing a great user experience. We listen to our customers and listen to our staff. We pay living wages. Our staff are local Bay Area engineers and professionals. We provide flexibility and personalized service. Being in Silicon Valley, we have direct contact with the networking software and hardware companies and can bring new technologies to market before the cable and phone companies. We operate a tower-based fixed wireless network as well as a fiber optic backbone network that rings the Bay. The combination creates an ultra-reliable high-capacity network that you ought to try. KSCO Business Special. Business service up to 10 megabits per second symmetric for as little as $299 a month with a $399 installation fee. Etheric Networks. Call 650-399-4200. Etheric.net.
No doubt about it. Spring is just around the corner, and that means it's time to get those RVs and boat, camper, and horse trailers ready to roll. Michael Olson here at RV Service Center, just off Highway 1 up at the top of Santa Cruz, 2525 Mission. Rena, what do folks need to do to get their rolling stock back on the road?
First, fire up all the appliances and make certain that they work. Stove, refrigerator, air conditioner, heater, and all the electrical components. Next, check out the things that are hard to see, like your running gear, axles, brakes, and tires. Don't want to lose a wheel or a horse while cruising down the highway.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of very important work that needs to get done before folks hit the road again, Rena. Will you folks at RV Service Center lend a hand?
You bet, Michael. We'll do a complete get back on the road spring checkup at RV Service Center. And to make it real easy, we'll do the complete checkup for 25% off. Book your appointment today because we're getting real busy already.
That's RV Service Center, 2525 Mission. Call today, 831-427-0881.
Welcome back to the Costa Report. I'm Rebecca Costa, and my guest today is former Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare, and also one of President Johnson's closest confidants, Mr. Joseph Califano. And before the break, you were explaining how the movie Selma portrayed President Johnson as a reluctant participant in Selma, when in fact, he and Martin Luther King worked very closely together. And you were also explaining that in the film, there's an implication made that Johnson and the FBI wanted Martin Luther King to, as the Italians say, go away. Is that? I guess that's a polite way to say it.
Well, but yeah, it's just that the FBI director suggested that. Johnson rejects it in the movie, but just that fact, and also that and there were tapes of Martin Luther King's philandering that were sent to Mrs. King, Coretta King. and the implication is that Johnson was the one that said send them to her. In fact, the taping occurred under Robert Kennedy. Johnson stopped that taping, and also Johnson was vice president when it was sent to the civil rights group that sent it to Coretta King. That's all of that was wrong. The contentiousness, the idea that Johnson was trying to disparage King, and the tragedy to me, and why I was so concerned about it when I saw that film, was this. This is a great story about the true story is a great story about a white Southern president and a civil rights leader and a black civil rights leader getting together to do something that neither of them probably could have done alone. And to lose that is terrible, because it's a great story for this country, and we need it at this point. We have a lot of racial tension right now.
I agree with you. We need good examples. And why would we tear down a good example like this? This is why I wanted to have you on the program. I'm very discouraged that we would tear down a good example.
Well, that's right, and you know, unfortunately, you know, you read a lot of history. I read a lot of history. Other people do, but most kids do not, and many adults don't. They get their history from movies, from films, and when this movie came out, it was, you know, to be the history of what happened. Well, that's a false history. What was said about LBJ was false. It wasn't theatrical license or anything. It was just false, and that's why. And I think for kids to see it and then come out and say, "Oh boy, you know, there's a white president wouldn't do anything and didn't want to do it," and you know, that was wrong. And finally, I think, Rebecca, it diminished Martin Luther King. The Martin Luther King that I talked to when I worked for President Johnson, and that President Johnson had at least 35 taped phone conversations with and many meetings. That Martin Luther King, like Johnson himself, was committed and canny, shrewd.
He was a great statesman.
He was a great statesman, and he was a very smart politician as well. I mean, he wasn't, you know, as important as it was for him to be a preacher and a man of God and a minister. The fact was he was more than that. He was even more than that, and the two of them were terrific together.
Yes, that's true. You know, well, let's talk for a moment about setting the record straight. You wrote a wonderful book, The President Who Made Washington Work, The Triumph and Tragedy of Lyndon Johnson. And you write so eloquently about his ambitious Great Society. Tell us a little bit about the Great Society.
Well, you know, I say in that book, as you know, I say, you know, we're living in Lyndon Johnson's America. And what? Yes, we are. Because think about it. It was during his administration, the Education Acts, 60% of the kids in college today in this country are there on grant, loan, and work-study programs that he got enacted. Medicare, Medicaid. Medicare covers about almost 60 million Americans, and Medicaid covers 70 million Americans. And there are 9,000 community health centers, all during the Johnson years. The first air pollution, the first water pollution, the first solid waste disposal laws, the first motor vehicle pollution laws, all passed during the Johnson administration. And just, you know, in the National Endowments for the Arts and Humanities, which has funded hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of local theater companies and opera companies and symphony orchestras and dance companies. And he proposed in 1967 the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which now gives us, 400 plus public television stations and 900 public radio stations. And, you know, that era changed the world. I mentioned one other thing because I think it is important. The reform of the immigration law. We had a national quota system in which immigrants were limited largely to people who were from Northern Europe or from the British Isles. 85% of our immigrants, when Johnson became president, were from those places.
Yes.
He passed immigration reform to open up the country to the world. And now, today, 85% of the immigrants to this country are from Southern Europe and Eastern Europe, the Spanish, the Italians, a lot of the Soviet countries, Jews that were there, and Asia, Central America, South America, the Middle East, and Africa. And if you look at the country, I mean, we are the most multicultural country in the world. Now, like it or love it, that's that.
But here's a fact.
We're living in his America.
Yeah, let me mention a fact that I find spectacular. Can I? While he was opening up immigration, while he was taking care of these immigration laws, it is amazing that the poverty line in the country dropped from 22% to 12%. I think last year it was hovering around 14% in our country right now. We haven't seen a 12% poverty line in a long time.
No, we haven't. And that's
Isn't that amazing that while he was doing immigration reform, poverty dropped in the country?
Well, and he did a lot of things. And people say, "Oh, the poverty program." It wasn't just the Office of Economic Opportunity. It was what he did with Social Security. He increased the minimum benefit. Remember, in those years, for sure, most people that were 65 and over had little or no retirement. Medicare, just taking the elderly, if my recollection is correct, and I think it is, when he was president, 35% of the people over 65 were below the poverty line. It's down to 9% today. Your point is absolutely right. The drop from 22 to 12, we've never had a drop like that in any comparable period in our history.
And we don't have it now. In fact, we're moving in the other direction. And that's a sorry indictment on our current administration. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about that, as well as I think there were something like 181 domestic bills that Johnson passed. And we've got to get to that because I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. So let's find out from Joseph Califano when we get back from the other side of this break. You're listening to the Costa Report. If you listen to the news today, you might come away with the impression that our biggest challenges are political and economic. But if this were true, then countries which have different political and economic systems would be facing different problems. But they aren't. Every government and every nation is struggling with job creation, debt, immigration, climate change, terrorism, healthcare, energy, and wild swings in financial markets. So something else must be going on. That's why I'm inviting you to get a copy of The Watchman's Rattle, a book which shows how the Roman, Mayan, and Khmer empires once faced similar challenges and what we can do to avoid their fate. Visit RebeccaCosta.com today and get a copy of The Watchman's Rattle, because once you do, you'll never look at the world the same way.
Calling all trivia buffs. Don't miss your chance to test your wits against fellow trivia enthusiasts while supporting a great cause. The Volunteer Center of Santa Cruz County is now taking registrations for the 6th Annual Trivia Challenge, beginning February 27th from 6 to 9:30 p.m. at the Santa Cruz Civic in support of senior programs at the Volunteer Center. Join Dale Julin from KSBW Television as the Master of Ceremonies for a festive evening of food, drinks, raffle prizes, and rousing trivia competition. Form a team or play along from the stands as a spectator. Teams that register by February 12th will qualify for a drawing to receive a $300 gift certificate from Cafe Cruz. Learn more, purchase tickets, or register at sctriviachallenge.org. or call 831-427-5070. That's 831-427-5070. Join us at the 2015 Business Showcase Passport to Success on Thursday, February 19th at the Capitola Mall from 4 to 7 p.m. It's your opportunity to get to know your local businesses and organizations. Come see live demonstrations from fly fishing to scuba diving, healthy living to the latest in banking needs. The Business Showcase will be sure to meet everyone's interests in a casual and inviting evening. Be sure to visit the Gourmet Hospitality Pavilion, where many of the area's finest restaurants, wineries, and caterers will have samples to offer. Presented by Valley Yellow Pages and KSCO and KOMY. Call the Aptos or Capitola Soquel Chambers of Commerce for more information at 688-1467 or 475-6522. Don't forget to join us. Admission is free.
Do you have a plan for your money? Does your money come and go like the tides? Do you just leave your finances to fate? Cash is always flowing, money is always moving, and if you don't manage it, it will move away from you. So many people actually spend more time planning their next trip to the dentist than they do something even more important like their retirement. You know what they say, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. Don't leave your financial future to fate. Take charge. Listen to Money Moves every Thursday at 7 p.m. here on KSCO AM 1080. Money Moves is dedicated to providing you tips and tools so you can manage your own money effectively. No one cares about your money more than you do. Therefore, you need the skills to manage your money. Listen to Money Moves every Thursday at 7 p.m. here on KSCO AM 1080.
Welcome back to the Costa Report. I'm Rebecca Costa, and if you're just joining us today, my guest is Joseph Califano. Now, in your book, you point out that Johnson pushed Congress to pass 181 domestic bills out of 200 that he wanted. So my question is, what do you say to folks who don't want to ever see government become that prolific again?
You know, I'd say a couple of things. One, it was very important. We needed those laws. We needed to deal with civil rights. We had the problem of discrimination in public accommodations and in employment. We had the voting rights problem. We had the problem in fair housing. We needed to deal with the environment. And he established a principle in many of those laws that not just to preserve what we have that's beautiful, but also that those who defile it, whether it's with chemicals or business, whoever, have an obligation to restore it. That's basically the principle, the philosophy behind so much of the environmental movement today.
Yeah, I believe he put through 20 conservation bills.
Yeah. He's the head of the National Geographic Society. He was very proud, called him our greatest environmental president. And I also think something else, Rebecca, it's important for people to remember that was going on in those years. Mm-hmm. I mentioned just, he did open up higher education to anybody who wants it in this country today, no matter how thin their daddy's wallet is. If they're willing to work and what have you, they can get it. And that was very important. But I think that we have to remember something. Lyndon Johnson's presidency also spanned the years in which the corner grocer and the local pharmacist and the local bank, the local drugstores all morphed into national chains, national banks, national retailers, mm-hmm. And he said, the housewife goes into a supermarket where the products are designed by the shrewdest marketers, and a veteran goes in to buy a car or a home, and the mortgage and the car payments and everything is designed by an army of lawyers. He said, we have to give some balance here, and so a whole host of laws: truth in packaging, truth in lending, wholesome meat, wholesome poultry, wholesome fish, the National Product Safety Commission.
Well, they were designed to protect the consumer from predatory practices.
You're exactly right, because
yes, and he was known for that. In fact, as you point out, the truth in lending, truth in statement, in advertising, these all came out of the Johnson administration.
Yes, they did, and even of course he I said once he was like I say in the book, The Triumph and Tragedy of Lyndon Johnson, he was like a kid with cookies. In terms of you couldn't get enough, he couldn't. Once he'd call me. It really annoyed him when he couldn't get you immediately.
Well, let's talk about something else. You're making a very compelling point that you have a president who arguably did more for civil rights legislation than any other president that we've had. He secured minority voting rights, established modern cities and mass transportation initiatives. He created rent supplements for the very poor, drug rehabilitation centers, established laws to protect consumers, established conservation laws, goes on and on. But then when he steps down as president, he completely withdraws from politics.
Well, I think it was very tough. Remember now that what clouded the Johnson presidency and was the Vietnam War, and the opposition to the war, the fact that by and large in colleges around the country, academics never taught about Johnson. They acted as though those years didn't exist.
But why did he walk away? You were close to him. Why did he walk away from politics? With that kind of a record, who walks away?
Well, he was convinced he had become divisive. It was the 3 days before he actually made the announcement. We were having lunch in the Rose Garden in the White House, and he said, and he was divisive on race. He was a symbol of division, and on the war. And I said, well, you should run. Why should I run? Well, you're the only guy that can get things done, I said. And he said, well, he said, the Congress and I are like an old married couple that's been lying next to each other in bed for 60 years and rubbing against each other, and there isn't any juice anymore.
That sounds like Johnson. Yeah, he was pretty plain spoken from Texas. That's for sure.
And he withdrew, and I think it was an incredible act of abnegation. Let me remember, the speech of his withdrawal was half was on the war, the bombing halt in Vietnam and hoping to end the war, and half it was on the desperate need we had for a tax bill because to get the funds we needed for programs and also to avoid terrible inflation. After he withdrew, the North Vietnamese agreed to come to the negotiating table. They started negotiations. He desperately wanted to end that war on his watch. Unfortunately, the Soviets invaded Czechoslovakia in September of '68, and then we had that awful incident in which Anna Chennault, on behalf of President Nixon, then candidate Nixon, was telling the South Vietnamese, you'll get a better deal with Nixon than you're going to get with Johnson, the South Vietnamese. And secondly, he got the tax bill passed.
Yeah.
And also, it's like the hand of God is on us sometimes in this country. He pulled out at the end of March, and 4 days later, Martin Luther King was assassinated. Mm-hmm. So imagine, at least he was able to deal with what would turn out to be the worst week of his presidency, with the riots in the cities, 100 cities, and troops we had to send into about 6 or 7. He was able to deal with that as a president that was out of the political arena.
But in spite of his record, in spite of doing the honorable thing and stepping away from politics, it's rumored that he asked Secretary of State Dean Acheson why people didn't like him. And as the story goes, Acheson told the president he just wasn't a likable man.
Well, that's
but I have to tell you, following Kennedy, that's a hard act to follow for any president.
And it was, and especially, and then Kennedy. I mean, the attractive, sophisticated, Harvard-educated Kennedy haunted Johnson in many ways. And I also, Johnson was this big-eared, huge Texan who had grown up in the hill country. When he was elected to Congress in '38, his first elective office. Where he grew up, that whole hill country part of Texas had no running water and no electricity. So he was entirely different. He was cruder than Kennedy. He did one thing vis-a-vis Kennedy, though, he was very opportunistic, which is an important part of a successful president. And he said, let's pass this law for President Kennedy. This would be a great tribute to John Kennedy. Even when many of the laws were laws he had been thinking about for years and weren't involved, but it helped him get those laws enacted. He liked Jack Kennedy, incidentally. With Bobby Kennedy, he had, they were like street fighters on the opposite side of the street.
Yes, that's true. That's also a matter of historical record. But he served the president well. He served President Kennedy well. And it was almost as though that unlikability combined with Kennedy's assassination and rumors that Johnson had something to do with it, and the Vietnam War, all conspired to create a very rough presidency for Johnson despite his track record. We have to take our final break, and we'll be right back with more from Joseph Califano. You're listening to the Costa Report. I'm here today with Scott Caraccioli of Caraccioli Cellars, and I have a question for you, Scott. What goes into making Method Champenois bubble?
It's a process that's really defined by the French government that we've taken and enacted into our wines, which really drive the quality of our sparkling project.
So this is a process that the French government defines pretty specifically, and you remain faithful to that?
Yeah, 100%. And in some places we push it a little bit.
Now, how do the bubbles translate on the palate?
It really gives you that vehicle, that mousse for the character of the sparkling wine, carrying the fruit and the complexity. It's the expression of the wine. To find out more about Caraccioli wines, visit us at www.caracciolicellars.com or stop by our tasting room in downtown Carmel, California. That's Caraccioli Cellars, Caraccioli, Cellars. Come taste the difference.
If you're wondering what to do with all that data you're creating, do I have an offer for you? Tableau is drag-and-drop software that people of any skill level can use to analyze and turn data into something actionable. That's right, I said actionable. And isn't that what all that data is for? With Tableau, you can connect to any data in virtually any format and visualize it on the fly. Databases, spreadsheets, even big data sources are instantly combined into usable charts, graphs, reports, and dashboards. People can analyze data and drag and drop at 10 times the speed of a traditional business intelligence system. But the most impressive thing about Tableau is that anyone can use it. And just to prove the point, you can get a free 14-day trial from Tableau just by mentioning you heard this ad. But do it now, because this offer won't last. For your free 14-day trial, visit Tableau at tableau.com/Costa. That's tableau.com/Costa. Tableau software. What's your data trying to tell you?
Hi, registered pharmacist Ben Fuchs here. I've been studying healthy bodies for 35 years, and what I've got to tell you may shock and surprise you, but if you listen up, it may change your life. Vitamin A is absolutely indispensable for improving the appearance of acne and blemished skin. It helps fight wrinkles and can improve the condition of psoriatic plaques and eczema rashes too. In addition to getting vitamin A from foods and supplements, this important nutrient can provide skin benefits when applied in creams and lotions as well. Topical vitamin A helps organize the growth of skin cells. In other words, you can put vitamin A on top of your skin and you can literally change the way skin cells grow and develop. There aren't many skincare ingredients that can make that claim. This is why products that contain contain vitamin A in its active form are considered drugs. The definition of a drug as defined by the FDA is something that is designed to treat or cure a disease or is intended to change a part of the body's chemistry. Topical vitamin A is regulated as a drug because it will change biochemistry. In the case of acne, it will change skin cells and make them more organized. Step one in the development of many skin diseases is crazy growing skin cells. Vitamin A is like a vitamin disciplinarian. In the case of acne blemishes, it whips crazy growing, pore clogging skin cells into shape. It organizes and stabilizes their development so they don't plug up pores. What's more, vitamin A can have a relaxing effect on the production of excess skin oils that can exacerbate pimple formation. On the other hand, if the skin oil cells are not producing enough oils, vitamin A can turn them on. In nutritional chemistry, we say vitamin A is a normalizing vitamin. It reestablishes and restores biochemistry back to its normal, healthy state. Pharmacist Ben here, urging you to go to kscohealth.com to order Beyond Tangy Tangerine, the Healthy Start Pack, and other nutritional supplements that I personally use and recommend. You can purchase these premium quality products at wholesale prices online at kscohealth.com. That's kscohealth.com. I'm the pharmacist that believes that staying healthy and strong is not only about medicine, it's about giving your body the raw materials it needs to do its work. Go to kscohealth.com. Make sure you check out the cool videos too at kscohealth.com. That's kscohealth.com.
Welcome back to the Costa Report. I'm Rebecca Costa, and my guest today is Joseph Califano. And he has written a remarkable new book, which is out right now, a book I hope every American will take a moment to read. It's titled The President Who Made Washington Work, The Triumph and Tragedy of Lyndon Johnson. I enjoyed the book a great deal because it helped me get a great number of facts that I was unclear about straight. And like I said, in these days of false reporting and misinformation, I think it's really important to try to get a grip on the facts. Now, Mr. Califano, you make the claim that it would not have been possible for Obama to be elected had Johnson not pushed through the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Is that right?
Absolutely. There's no question about it. You have to recognize that what's happened. I mean, he was supported by 90%. Oh, actually, I think it was 92% of the black vote. That vote was critical to him in a significant number of states. Indeed, that vote has become critical to the future of the Democratic Party, well,
the future of both parties.
The future of both parties.
How can you win? How can you win without the Hispanic and black vote? You can't.
Very, very difficult. You're absolutely right, and I think. But, more importantly, something you mentioned earlier in the show, Rebecca, that's so important. He was very conscious of role models, and he did appoint the first black cabinet officer. He appointed the Thurgood Marshall to the Supreme Court. And he also put the first black on the Federal Reserve Board. That was a wonderful example of Johnson in action.
I'm still going to ask you the same question over. Why don't we give President Johnson credit for those advances?
Well, I think he's beginning to get some of it. I mean, there is a reevaluation taking place. I think the war was a big part of it, and I think the thing that you mentioned, which is very important, was, his physical presence, his sort of down-earthiness and what have you, lent itself more to caricature than portraiture. Mm-hmm. I think all of that combined, and it was he succeeded a person who became a mythical president. Camelot was a creation of the media, and he had all.
I almost get the feeling, Mr. Califano, that we were all a nation in mourning and we took it out on President Johnson.
That's an interesting point.
I just think we had to take it out on someone, and so these rumors that he had something to do with the assassination, that went on and on for decades, as you know. And
let me say something about that, because that's another example of Hollywood at its worst. Okay, that Oliver Stone movie JFK.
Yep.
Which is an outrage. That movie is an outrage. And just think about the fact how many people have seen that movie. And sometimes when I go around speaking, it's just amazing to me the number of younger people that will ask that question.
Well, when I get asked about that, I have to remind them it's not a documentary.
Well, that's
it's not a documentary. Yeah, it's very important to make a distinction between a documentary and an actual Hollywood production by Oliver Stone.
There is one, there is the movie not the movie, but the play All the Way, in which Bryan Cranston played Lyndon Johnson, did a terrific job, and that's being made into a movie, which will come out, I understand, about a year from now. With Bryan Cranston starring. But look, the fact is, I do believe we're beginning to see some reevaluation. We're beginning to see some recognition for what he did. Now, he left us all these laws, and as you indicated earlier, I'll rephrase it a little bit, in the introduction, a long 8,000-word essay introducing my book that I've written. I point out that he left us something else, which was unremitting controversy. I mean, this whole issue of how much government is too much government? Is there too much power in the executive and legislative branches in Washington vis-a-vis the states? All of those issues, they were all great society issues. They've been around for a long time. So Johnson not only has put all this stuff in place, he has also provided the fuel for what is the political dialogue in the second decade of the 21st century. It's remarkable.
It is. And you make the point we are living still under the Johnson administration, whether we realize it or not. And that's one of the things I love about your book, is that it helps us to see how we got to where we are and why these dialogues are continuing. Now, unfortunately, we are almost out of time, but before we let you go, do you have a website where listeners can go to get more information on the book or keep up with your activities?
Absolutely. They can just go to the Simon Schuster website, or they can tweet, whatever you do, just hashtag LBJ book, and they'll get to it. And they can buy it on Kindle. It's hardcover, it's paperback, it's audio, it's in every conceivable version.
And that's hashtag LBJ book if you're on Twitter. And you can go to the Simon & Schuster website as well and look for the book. Again, The President Who Made Washington Work, The Triumph and Tragedy of Lyndon Johnson. Unfortunately, we are all out of time. But
as we're out of time, I just want to say something to you about you. I appreciate being interviewed by someone who knows a lot of history, who knows what they're talking about, and who's actually read the book. Okay?
Well, thank you, Mr. Califano. And may I say thank you for your public service to our country, and thank you for writing an outstanding book to set the record straight at a time when we need more facts than fiction. Thank you so much, Mr. Califano. I hope you'll join us again.
Thank you, Rebecca. Bye-bye.
If your station is leaving us after the first hour and you have a question or a comment to make about our interview with Joseph Califano, you can email me at RebeccaCosta.com or drop me a note on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. And if you joined our broadcast late or missed the full interview with Califano, or you want to listen to some of our other guests, remember you can always download episodes of the Costa Report from our website, Apple iTunes, Podbean, and our YouTube channel. And be sure to check out our new radio blog. It's posted every week on our webpage. The blog captures the headline news story from every interview. So if you want to catch the news that the mainstream media sees fit to ignore, well, all you have to do is take a couple of minutes to read our blog. And do us a favor, pass the word along about the Costa Report and also the blog. We've become one of the most popular weekly news magazines in the country, all by word of mouth. It's true, all by word of mouth, and we want to keep it that way. That's right. We have turned down the right to be syndicated by the largest broadcast companies in the world just so we can maintain control over the content we deliver to you each and every week. And the reason we can do that is thanks to the sponsors of our program who believe in and want media independence. And also because you, our listeners and local affiliate stations, keep spreading the word. When you stop and think about it, there's a reason that all the news you hear has been reduced to 5-minute sound bites. And one of the reasons is it's just cheaper to produce junk news. You don't need a staff to check out the facts. And another reason is journalists don't have to spend any time on any one particular story. It's very hard to get to the truth if you don't want to invest any time getting to it. And this is why we're one of the last holdouts of the television and what television and radio call the long form. We spend the first hour each week with a thought leader who can give us deeper insights into the world we're living in today and what we can do to solve the problems that we face. So help us spread the word around a little bit. Next week, we're going to turn our attention to an issue on which our nation is squarely divided. My guest authored the legal opinion, which became the basis for enhanced interrogation techniques used by the CIA during the Bush administration. Former Deputy Assistant U.S. Attorney General John Yoo will be here to set the record straight on what is legally considered torture and what is not. Don't miss John Yoo next week on the only news program that puts policy ahead of politics. Now stay tuned for a second hour of Straight Talk Radio. You're listening to the Costa Report.
Big data is changing the way organizations work. From data-driven marketing and ad targeting to the connected car, big data is fueling product innovation and new revenue opportunities. It's creating a culture in which business and IT leaders join forces to realize value from all data. They infuse analytics everywhere and make speed a differentiator, gaining competitive advantage from faster, more informed decisions. Leading organizations are creating new business models, developing new roles, and defining new big data architectures, including an infrastructure that can manage and process exploding volumes of structured and unstructured data, in motion as well as at rest, while protecting data privacy and security. Find out how IBM Big Data and Analytics can transform your business. Visit www.ibm.com/bigdata today.
When your home needs repairs, you fix it. Shouldn't we treat our bodies just as well? If you have joint pain, it's time to get help. Learn more at DominicanHospital.org. Dignity Health, including Dominican Hospital. Hello, human kindness.
Tell me what you think about donuts. This is a saying I have about donuts, and I need a disclaimer.
A saying?
It's really, really good. Donuts are like prostitutes. And why are donuts like prostitutes? Because you look at it and you go, oh, I really, really want one, but I shouldn't have one. Oh, God, I really want one. And then you have one, and afterwards you're like, oh, I shouldn't have had one. I'm not going to tell anyone.
What you really got to have is Good Morning Monterey Bay, weekdays, 6 to 9 a.m. on KSCO AM 1080.
Serving Northern California for over 65 years. This is KSCO Santa Cruz.